All right, people, we have finally returned with a bang. We have Mr. Dante here with us today. It has been a little bit of hiatus with the podcast, given I was away for a month, but now we're back into it. Man, how you doing this morning?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's not quite morning here, but it has been a nice day nonetheless.
Where are you situated? Are you in Australia?
I'm in Sydney, Australia.
I'm sure it's pretty warm this time of year over there.
Well,
Or is it the opposite?
we actually have opposite seasons.
Oh, why? Oh, yeah. You guys have like Christmas in the sun.
Yeah, yeah, summer Christmas. You guys have white Christmas.
Wow, our Christmas is more rain than it is snow. Yeah,
I guess it
freaked out
depends
about
where
that.
you are in the UK.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
I'm up north, so like we get a bit worse weather than like
Okay.
London and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Up north, what city?
Manchester.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Cool. Yeah. No, it's probably as cold as it will get here, and it might be uh maybe 10 degrees in the morning and get up
That's a
to
blessing. We get like -6.
yeah, yeah. And that's as bad as it will get really. Um, but then when the sun gets out, it's a different kettle of fish because once you're in the sun, oh, jumper comes off. If you go for a little bit of walk, jumper comes off, and as long as you're in the sun, it's okay. But then yeah, back end of the day, it starts to get a little bit chilly. But it's all not. I mean, people whinge about it. I'm like, guys, it's not that bad. It's nice to have a little bit of a cool breeze before we go back into the heat of the summer.
Yeah. I think anyone who thinks it's pretty bad, they should do half a year in Manchester. Or even Scotland. Scotland's even worse.
Yeah, it'd be rainier, hey, in Scotland.
Yeah, a lot, yeah.
It's funny because we actually get more rainfall across the entire calendar year, but
How
it's
is it?
more interspersed across a month or a year. So we might have no rain for ages and then just get absolutely bucketed
Torrential
down.
downpour.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
torrential. And it probably picks up for X amount of months that it, maybe didn't rain.
That's probably why your guys' wildlife is so crazy.
We have, we have places where it can snow, and then we have, a rainforest, the Daintree rainforest, which is, you know, spectacular and, you know, just pure rainforest, as if you were, on the equator type of thing. So it's really you get if depending on where you are and depending on where you travel, you can get one end of the spectrum and go all the way up to the other, pretty much. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm guessing you haven't been before,
Nah, it's a bit far out for me.
mate. Everything's far here. You get here and you got to go far to go anywhere.
How far is it from like Asia? Is it like 8, 9 hours?
If you're traveling from Singapore, it's about 8.5 to Sydney.
Yeah, so even
P-
that's
Perth's a bit closer. Northern Territory is a bit closer, but I would say, hey, you probably would want to go to Perth, Melbourne, uh, Brisbane, Gold Coast, or Sydney. They're probably. I wouldn't necessarily recommend going to Darwin for your first exposure to Australia. Not that I've been, so maybe you just got to get
why
out
is
of
that?
there. Um, it's a little bit rough. They've had a few instances of late that I'm not sure exactly what's happened, but there's been some sort of riots with police and a bit of local uproar. I believe it's in Darwin. I could be completely wrong here, but in the Northern Territory, uh, yeah, it's a little bit nicer down along the east coast and even on the west coast in Perth.
Just avoid that.
Yeah, you could. The flights, honestly, probably more expensive as well, just
It's
because
because
not
no one
as
wants
many
to go
people
there,
go
that's
there.
why.
Yeah, yeah. No one's leaving because they can't, and no one's coming in because they don't want to. All right, let's
Oh,
get into the bread and butter, man. So, who
yeah.
is Dante? How long you been training? And then run us through your first
So
season because you did quite a few shows, and I'd love to hear about your experiences within the different federations over there because I'm not familiar with DFAC in the UK and how they run their stuff
yeah,
as well.
yeah. So obviously, I'm Dante. I'm a WNBF pro. I won my professional status in 2024 in the UAE at the WNBF in Dubai. Um, and yeah, so 2024 was my first year competing. Within that year, I was a junior, and funnily enough, I only did one contest as a junior. I did more shows as an opens man bodybuilder, and I did more pro shows than I did as a junior that year. Funny how that worked out. But needless to say, so yeah, I did, I think, four federations. So my first show was with the BNBF at the BNBF Northern, which is obviously the UK's affiliate with the DFAC. I then did the UK FBA after that, WNBF in the UAE, and then I did the DFAC Grand Prix, which is basically the pro show tagged on at the BNBF British Finals. Um, so yeah, I'm not sure, like you said, how familiar you are obviously with those shows. So all the shows run a little bit differently. So the BNBF over here in the UK runs quite typically like how like the IFBB run, as in they will do a pre-judging and then an actual sort of finals.
Mm.
The UK FBA, they just run straight through. So you do comparisons into your routine, into awards, and then overalls at the end of the day. And the WNBF is obviously very similar in that aspect as well. Um, so yeah, so like things started off with obviously the BNBF Northern. I competed there as a junior. I won my class there, and I didn't win the overall there. I lost the overall to Ethan Kavanagh, who I'm sure some of you guys may know. Um, and then shortly after that, I did the UK FBA Heart of England, which was a show that was like completely not planned. The only reason why I did that show was because I knew Ethan was doing it and I wanted to beat Ethan. So I literally entered that show because I just wanted to beat him because I knew I could beat him. And then we ended up actually not doing the same class. So I entered obviously as a men's open there because I wanted to compete against him again. We ended up in two different classes. So he ended up in bodybuilding short. I ended up in bodybuilding tall, even though we're the same height. It's funny how that worked out as well. And then, yeah, I ended up winning the overall at that show. And then
Did you guys meet
after,
at the overall?
no, so he placed, I think, third or
Okay.
fourth in his category. I'm not sure if you know who Dan Sutcliffe is. Dan Sutcliffe, he won the category for that. He actually went on to win another world title, so his second amateur world title within the DFAT Worlds later on that year.
Yeah, yeah.
He's actually competing again this year, funnily enough.
Mm.
Should look him up. He's obviously a really good competitor. So yeah, it was actually him who won the class there, and then I took obviously the overall. That was a very long day. I think the overall went on at like 11:30 at night
And that was with
from
BNBF?
no UK FBA.
Okay, you get FTA.
Yeah. But
That's a
since
long
then they've
show,
had
man.
like yeah, from there from 10 a.m. till 11:30 at night. Um
11:30.
yeah,
Come on, guys.
yeah. But since then they have like changed things around. They have
Good.
like
Yeah.
they've got a new president who's like in charge of stuff, and the shows are running a lot quicker now than what they was. So, credit to them for that. And then yeah, so after winning the overall there, my coach, obviously AJ Morris, we had a conversation, and that's where the idea of WNBF UAE came about because initially I did plan to do WNBF UK show. Um, but I have like family who live in Dubai. So my brother with his wife and kids live in Dubai. So it kind of made sense to like go over there and compete in front of them and stuff. And obviously that's what we did. Had a great time there. Again, I won the overall there and earned professional status there. And I didn't actually realize how like significant that like WNBF UAE show is because I actually received quite a lot of criticism for actually doing that show. And some people, they don't know that I know this, but some people have like said some hateful things about me for winning that show, apparently.
For
Um,
what absolute reason would there be?
did you? It's weird. So, in my opinion, I think 2024 was like the start of WNBF being a little bit more like rewarding with handing out the amount of pro cards they do. That was kind of like the first year it started.
Okay.
So, I believe before me, the last person from the UK to turn pro was Keefe as a junior.
Yep.
So I think people kind of like expected me to do WNBF UK. And obviously, I think they kind of seen it as a case of like, I went for like an easy pro card, even though 2 weeks before that, I won the Heart of England show, which had pretty much everyone who was doing the WNBF UK show was there. I already
Yeah.
beat them.
And to be
Um,
honest, that UAE show is a big show. Like it
that's
picks up
that's that's
a
what I'm
lot of
getting onto
Asia,
now. So yeah,
and
hundred
it's
percent,
quite central even for parts of Europe to come over.
100%. And that's what I didn't realize until once I actually went over to do it. It opened my eyes of like how actually significant that show is in terms of the calendar year because a lot of people, unfortunately, because of Worlds is usually in, the USA, can't get visas to compete there. So because of the prize money that they obviously offer, I think it's like £10,000 if you win, not
Mm.
pound, US dollars if you win the pro overall there. For a lot of people, that is their version of Worlds. So I think when I competed there, there was like 250 competitors over
It's a big show.
loads and loads of different nations from, Africa, loads of Asia. This was obviously before WNBF India was even a thing. And we obviously, everyone knows how big bodybuilding is through like the ICN and stuff in India.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of like, and naturally in Dubai, there's a big Indian contingency anyway. Yeah, it was a very, very competitive show and even the pro lineup there, like I went and did the pro show after I got absolutely destroyed in the lineup. But like even there, like we had Samuel Hartman, I think he came third in heavyweights there. Dirk Emmerich obviously won the pro overall there, and I believe he's doing that show again this year.
Yeah, he is.
We had I forgot his name, but there was a Spanish guy who previously won that show who came back. I think he's
Uh-huh.
a pro world champion as well. I forgot his name. So there was quite a few like big name competitors, and the actual like pro lineups there were 12 to 15 people in between lightweights and heavyweights. So it's a really really big show, and yeah, I received some flack for that. And then after that, I did the BNBF Grand Prix, which was obviously with the DFAC the following
Yeah.
week, and that was probably the hardest week of prep, having to travel from Dubai to south of England to do that show. Obviously, naturally, we held like a little bit of water and fluid and stuff from yeah. This is the show. You can see the lineup there.
How long did you have between shows, Dante?
So from the first show till the second show was 2 weeks, I believe.
Hmm.
And then between the second show till the third show, the WNBF show, that was another 2 weeks. And then it was back-to-back shows. So it was the WNBF show into this show. And yeah,
Mm.
you
Mm.
can you can see the lineup here with obviously we've got Keefe, Robert, who's obviously a DFAC world champion, I believe. I think he placed top three at Pro Worlds WNBF as well. Then we've got Theo Gulab, who is like a veteran in natural UK bodybuilding. He's got
Yep.
like more overalls than people have got shows. Honestly,
he's a big guy. Like
he's
I know
200
he didn't
pounds on stage.
necessarily I know he didn't win, but he I can just see he's a big guy. Like he's very thick
Yeah,
front to back.
yeah, very thick. Um, I'm not sure if I posted the comparisons from the WNBF UAE, but I
From the pro
think
show,
yeah, I don't think I posted it. That
if you
was
got them,
that was the
that's the
class.
amateur. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think I did post the Heart of England if you scroll a little bit further down.
Being the UK FDA.
Yeah. So it'll be yeah. So that was the overall. So the guy in
Uh-huh.
the center is Dan Sutcliffe.
Yeah.
That was probably my most competitive look of that year. It was certainly AJ's favorite look. That was the death protocol.
The
Literally
death
compete.
protocol.
Honestly, I had like trace carbs for that day. It was literally like all my meals was just pro fat with like peak max coming out my ears. Had a headache, like had a migraine throughout the entirety of show day, and
Is that
thankfully
because
ended up
you were
winning.
still chasing conditioning?
So what we found was from the first peak that we did, as the day kind of progresses, the look gets more watery through like my glutes and my hamstrings. So it was kind of a combination of the two. So we obviously got into better condition within that like week. I think we dropped 2.5 pounds between the first two shows. But the big difference throughout the actual peak in the process was we kind of front loaded our carbs. So we did obviously the majority of the loading at the front end of the week, and then we tapered off quite a bit throughout the back end of the week. We pushed diuresis more than we did the previous week, and then on show day we just didn't do pretty much any carbs. All carbs was pretty much trace carbs because I hold fullness quite well. And a lot of fullness for myself actually comes through actually having fluid in. Obviously, as long as I have had some carbs in relatively close proximity to the show. Um, so yeah, it was literally like I think I had 6 or 7 liters of water throughout that day. Um, 6 to 7 grams of pink salt with some low salt. So obviously potassium and sodium going in, and then like the majority of the calories came in through fats.
Hmm. Interesting.
And yeah, that's what the look was. A very, very unconventional peak. I've personally never peaked anyone like that, and I think I was the first person AJ peaked like that. And it worked, which kind of goes to show with bodybuilding there's a million ways to get the job done.
Yeah, you've got to look at the person in front of you. Hey, got to assess what's going
Yeah,
on in real time and yeah, adjust the protocol accordingly.
yeah.
And if you were to say, we can maybe say your favorite federation that you competed with, or or the favorite show experience within that season.
So I think my it's weird. So I do like all the federations, but obviously I've got a bit more of a bias towards the WMF because that's who I hold my pro card with. But I will say, I know the BMBF and the DFAC kind of splits opinions quite a lot with how the show runs, with having a pre-judging and a finals. But I personally really enjoy that. And something with the DFAC and the BMBF is, especially in the UK, the lighting is always fantastic. The lighting's always really good and really consistent on a show to show basis, which I know like the WNBF has had a little bit of like flack for with the lighting can be a little bit inconsistent, especially in like North America. Um, so I'd probably say competing as an amateur, I would recommend the BNBF, but however, the WNBF UK show as well, the lighting is really, really good there as well, and that is a pretty good experience in my opinion as well. I can't comment on the UKFBA because since I competed, there's obviously been
Mm.
like a change in how the federations ran, and I obviously haven't competed with like the new like ruling there, so I can't really comment on that.
And what led you to pulling the trigger to get into a contest prep? And maybe how long was the lead up to that point in time?
So for me, it was a natural process. So I first started training in just like a normal commercial gym. So over here we've got like Pure Gym and the gym group. I started off in the gym group, which is just like your typical like budget friendly gym. Dumbbells go up to like 40 kilo, whatever. So I spent my first year of training there. Then I moved to the gym that I'm currently at now, which is obviously EP Jungle, which has recently become very famous because One Punch Naz trains there now. Um, and since I started training there, my my physique obviously like progressed a good bit just from naturally being in an environment that is more conducive towards like competitive bodybuilding. At this time when I first moved to this gym, I didn't really know what bodybuilding was. Um, And yeah, I was just training there. I met some people there, obviously, as you do. And one of my really good friends who I actually coached last year in Dario Vernon, who that was when I joined, he was going through his first competition prep. And I kind of seen like how his prep went along. That was kind of actually like my first hand exposure to bodybuilding was seeing his prep and seeing the shows that he did. Um, And then, like, as the years kind of went on and progressed, people naturally in the gym would say, I think you should try bodybuilding. You've got good potential, you've got good shape, you've got good structure. And obviously, as like a 20-year-old, 19-year-old kid, it just kind of like goes over your head, like, you don't have a clue what they're talking about. And so, like, from there, people kept saying, I should do that, I should compete, I should, whatever. I looked into it a little bit more. That's where I started like delving a bit more into like the education side of things, learning a bit more about bodybuilding. And from there, that's where I stumbled across AJ Morris. And I remember the first post that I seen actually from him was when he won I think it was the Heart of England, I believe. Or I think it might have even been the UKFB British, where he won his British title there. And that was, I want to say 2022, I think. So I started following him from there, obviously engaging and watching like his content and stuff. And then in 2023, that's where I first, actually, no, back end of 2022, I first inquired for coaching, found out a little bit about coaching, but I was actually nursing a knee injury at the time, so I didn't actually pull the trigger on coaching. So then once my knee got pretty much fully recovered, I then hopped on board with him in 2023, and then yeah, since then the rest is history.
Awesome, man. Before we continue, I'm just going to have to put these on, make a
Yeah,
bit of a
you've
scene
frozen.
about it because these very bright lights are just going to absolutely cook me. Um,
You've frozen on my screen, mate.
oh, come on, man. I'll pause there. Still frozen?
Yeah,
I
you've
have
kind of
to,
got
haven't
like
I?
one eye open and one eye closed.
Well, look, if the you can hear me though, okay, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
As
that's
long as it's
fine.
not frozen on your side, then
Yeah, no, it is. It records independently on each person's computer, so it's all good. But what
Yeah.
I was going to say is I've got my red light glasses on because I have these two bright lights either side of me. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think they're a little bit wanky, but anyway, they make me feel a little bit more comfortable with the lights on. Uh, okay, cool. So, what would you say was the personality trait that drove you to be competitive and to want to graft away every session in the gym? Like, did you play a previous sport, or is there something within your upbringing that really instilled that mentality in you?
Yeah, so as when I was younger, I played like football and stuff over here. And like I've always been really competitive. Like I would describe myself as I'm hyper competitive. Like I don't lose well. Granted, bodybuilding has taught me a lot from like a personal level. Like that there's genuinely like levels to bodybuilding. So you really have to like come to terms with the fact of like that there is literally just people out there who are better than you at bodybuilding because one, they've either
Yeah,
got higher genetic capabilities than you, or they've just been training for a significantly long period of time. And doing my last show, the DFAC Grand Prix, that was like very evident where I placed fourth. You know, in third was Theo, who's like feels almost old enough to be my dad. You know, he's been training for 20 years. He's 200 pounds in stage condition and shape, like in shape,
and
which is
everyone,
rare within
just
itself.
has a level of muscularity that
Yeah,
is just going to take you time to achieve.
yeah. And then like in second place was Keefe. Everybody knows who Keefe is. Like Keefe's been, I think he's coming up to like 12 years training or something now. So that's
Yeah,
double the amount of time I've been training. And then Robert again is someone who's entering into like what would be his like competitive prime years of competing in natural bodybuilding. And like I'm 24 years old, so you have to have that perspective of like the people at the top of natural bodybuilding are people who are entering into their early 30s. I've
yeah,
got probably 8 years before I enter into what would be perceived as my prime. So you kind of obviously have to have a little bit of like perspective there. But I would say my biggest trait, which allows me to be the most competitive when I competed, was I'm very like AJ describes as horizontal. Like I'm just very one level. Like I'm never like too high or too low. I'm just kind of like always in the middle. And obviously with naturally what comes with prep of a roller coaster of emotions, I think just being able to be very just like go with the flow is probably the best characteristic that I've got. And like a lot of people say, you know, bodybuilding's hard work and the training, the dieting, whatever, but it's not that hard. And it might sound a bit like
rustle a few feathers here,
blasé to
Dante.
say, but it's just training. It's not that deep, you know. At the end of the day, it is just training. And I think the people who make it this life or death sort of experience are the people who fizzle out because, like I said, they get too high and they get too low. They have one bad set and it ruins the whole session, or they have one more difficult week of dieting and prep, and all of a sudden the wheels fall off. And when you actually like strip bodybuilding down to its bare bones, it is just going in on a given day under given circumstances and training as hard as you physically can on that given day. And ultimately, like as you obviously know, your body doesn't know what numbers you've done the previous week. It only knows the stimulus that you're placing upon it. And if you're training, you know, in the fashion where like I'm not sure what your approach to training is, but I'm sure it's quite similar to mine with your working sets, you're driving to obviously a close proximity to failure. That's the only thing that matters. if you've lost a rep this week compared to last week, the chances are the stimulus is pretty similar. And I don't know. I think personally, it's like it's just not that difficult. You know, you get to eat 5 meals a day. You get to train for 2.5 hours a day. Like, yeah, it's not that hard in like retrospective. Just some of the struggles some other people go through on a day-to-day basis. You know?
Absolutely. I think as you mature, as you progress from an amateur to, a pro worthy to an elite towards that mastery end of the spectrum, uh, I mean, for me, I get into the gym, and I'm excited beyond belief. Like it's not hard for me to train 0 to 1 reps in reserve. Like it's not hard. It's not hard for me to diet, but at the beginning of bodybuilding, it
Yeah,
could
it's
be
a skill.
perceived that way for sure. And
It's a
yeah, like you
hundred
said, it's
percent
a
a skill.
skill. Um, and as you sort of start to look into guys like Eric Helms, or you look up to guys that are at that position in their career where it's so ingrained that it's not hard.
Alberto's another one.
Yeah, Alberto is a great example. I love watching his full day of eating. It's sort of,
Yeah, he's like
did you
two
watch it?
slices of pizza at the end of the day,
But
and
it was like to
he's
start
like
off with
shredded out of his
a
mind.
bowl of spinach, because he hates his greens, so he gets it over and done with at the start of the day. I was like, this is perfect because for me, if I think a little bit too much about food, it becomes a little bit more challenging to, stay within my constraints. But if I just simplify
Are you a
things
big
and
eater?
just, I can eat a lot. But it
Yeah,
got to a
I'm
place
similar on that.
now. I've got to a place now after being exposed to certain individuals where it's like, oh, I'm just gonna have sweet potato and chicken. Like
Yeah,
not go too deep into making, you know, the sweet potatoes spiced and seasoned, and going too far into putting lots of effort into the chicken, because it just creates extra thought process for me. And once I reach a limit of a level of thought process, I then tip over into thinking too much about food, and then it potentially becomes harder to
yeah,
stick within my constraints. So I think I can thank Brandon a little bit for that. Like it would just be, oh, I need to hit my veggie target for today, so I'm just gonna have 500 grams of carrot, or just something just stupidly simple. Like why overcomplicate it? Like of course there's some micronutrient uh considerations with just eating carrot for vegetables, but you don't do that every day. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, just the flexibility in which I've seen others operate, it just like, okay, this is easy. We can make this work.
I do think with obviously like Alberto being an example, Eric Helms, like these are obviously people with like families and stuff. And before when I spoke about like the bare bones of bodybuilding isn't that hard. Like these guys are prime examples. Like these people are raised in families and are able to intuitively eat and still move towards their goal because there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat. And like I'm sure those guys have probably faced more challenges with raising, little children than they have in a contest prep.
Yeah,
Like ultimately there's different pressures in life, and with bodybuilding, we're very fortunate in the fact of we get to pick what your pressure is. And a lot of the time, a lot of pressure that you place on yourself is self-inflicted. And it often stems from the mind, you know, and how you obviously handle and react to different emotions when you're hungry.
absolutely. Um, yeah, don't really disagree with anything you just said there, man. I think, that
It,
some
it gets
people with
better with
training,
time as well.
yeah, it does. And I think, I mean, for me, like nutritionally was probably the hardest thing to struggle with, but it was more, I actually was reflecting upon standards that weren't reflective of what I was doing before. And so I was expecting myself to be at a certain level, but it's like, hey, you're already at a level far and above beyond where you were last off season.
Yeah.
Like let's be a little bit easier on yourself here. But now I've sort of come to the other side after having that sort of post prep
How did that go
reacclimation
for you?
of it was okay until I went to Thailand. Um, so I did about the sort of I got about 12% up after 8 to 10 weeks, which for me was like still pretty lean, but I started to, I would say, encroach on that lower body fat set point if we're talking about that type of theory. And then I just didn't have a good food environment while I was away. Food
Yeah.
availability for what we paid for was a lot of Chinese, and that is not conducive, especially being in another country. Um, but I did pretty well. I was pretty hard on myself, though. I don't know. How are you? I've seen other guys just robot their way through, and I'm very impressed. But at the same time, I'm also interested in having a conversation with them about how it was for them.
I wouldn't describe myself as a robot with food. Like me personally, in the off season, if I fancy to eat something, I will just eat it. But I think because I don't have that kind of like rigid mindset towards like my meal plan, I'm quite flexible in my meals. Like I have my given meal plan, but if like I've run out of rice for today and the shop's closed, I'll just swap the carb source with something else.
Yeah,
Whereas I've even coached people where they've had it where they've run out of cream of rice and like the whole world's ending. They're like messaging me, I've got no cream of rice. What do I do?
just
I'm
doing
like, mate,
circles on the spot. Like, where do
I've
I
been
go?
coaching you for the last 40 weeks. If you can't like macro replace you on your meal plan, like what have I been doing for the last 40 weeks? But yeah, post show for me was I gained 10 pounds relatively quickly. So like the first 2 weeks, 10 pounds went on, and
Yeah,
then after that, it
yeah,
was very slow out of the gates. After that, it was like 2 pounds for like, a week for like the next 4 to 5 weeks, and after that, it kind of just like slowly tapered off to 1 pound, quarter,
yeah,
3/4 of a pound, and then that's where it stayed. For the the remainder of that post show recovery sort of phase. Um, And I found that with post show, I had the actual post show period, so actually after the show, I had what did I have? I think I went, it was funny actually, it's a funny story. So I finished my post show down south, and where we were staying, we stayed in London. So we we had, what did I have? I had like some shit takeaway. Like we Googled like some takeaway that was like a smash beef like patty takeaway, and we had that, and it was just like so mediocre. And this is like when grelling's through the roof because I've just done like a 33
yeah.
week
And it still
prep,
tastes
and
poor.
like even then it was still like
Wow.
mediocre. And
Yeah.
then I think I like on the way home I had like a bag of sweets, and then I just went bed. And then the day
Mm,
after we
mm.
actually went out, went to like a restaurant, and I went to a place over here called Hickory Smokehouse, which is like American style. It's very like meat intensive, so it's like brisket,
Yeah. Texas
ribs,
barbecue
all
type
that.
thing.
Yeah, so I had like a single platter of that. So it was just like there must have been like 300 to 400 grams of protein on this plate and probably like 200 grams of fat. And
Mm.
then I like ate that, and I just felt full for like 3 days. And it was just like I don't even want to eat. So I
You
think
could
because
still
I did
taste the
that,
salt as well, probably from all the
yeah,
smoking in the mouth the next day.
yeah. So I think because of that, it was just like, yeah, I'm good on food now. It's out of my system. Like I'll go back in prep right now, like if it just makes me stop feeling like as full as I am now.
Yeah. And what about physiologically and psychologically, how were you feeling about food, food focus? We could even touch on just energy levels,
Yeah,
libido, that type of stuff. Like, when would you say that came back for you? Because for me, I probably got to a 95, 97%, and there was just that last couple of percent that took a little bit longer, and it was harder to quantify as well, of
yeah.
course. But
So for me, the thing that took the longest to kind of come back was like my metabolism. So like metabolically, I was pretty shot for I would say the 40 or so-ish weeks I had post show, a long majority, like the large majority of that was probably in a metabolically compromised position. And I did find that like after my diet towards the last year, like the end of last year, that was where I actually like came back sort of metabolically. Which is why like this last like off season has been like significantly more productive because like my ability to just like assimilate food and nutrients was just far superior. But like from an energy standpoint, it was actually really weird because I spent like so long in this like fatigued state, it just felt really normal.
yeah,
And it wasn't until that like first week post show where I actually started eating more, where I was like, what the hell? I feel like twice the human I was before. Um, yeah, crazy. From like a hormonal perspective, I'm not actually sure because my libido did drop like towards the latter stages of prep, but it didn't like completely disappear, which I know some people like it does, and it takes, 6 to 8 months for it to come back. But for myself, I didn't have that. I did have like a loss of libido, but it wasn't just completely gone. And I think I would attribute most of that like loss of it just down to the fact of just being tired from
yeah,
being low body fat. It's just like the thoughts. I was like, I've not even got the energy to entertain those thoughts at the minute. Um, Hormonally, like actual, like physiologically, I'm not 100% sure. There was kind of like a stage around like 12 to 14 weeks post show where the look got better, and that obviously can be kind of attributed to the fact of hormonally you're probably recovering now, like your testosterone and stuff. But I didn't actually pull my blood work then because, there's no point in getting your bloods done really post show because I can tell you what it's going to look like. It's just going to be red, 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 amber, 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 red, red, red. Cortisol's probably going to tell you you're going to die soon or have cardiac arrest. But I actually then did actually pull my bloods. I think 6 weeks in that diet. So this would be around like 46, 47 weeks post show. And like everything was like in the green. Apart from like creatinine and cortisol, which is always just going to be out of whack from
yeah,
training and like having a high protein diet. Um, so yeah, I would actually say like thankfully hormonally I did recover pretty quick compared to most people. Like I do know some people personally who it takes 8, 9 months for them to even get like the energy back, like that final few percent, like you said, and to even get the libido back and sex drive. And
mm,
obviously what comes along with, having a healthy sex drive is you've actually got that drive inside of the gym because the two things do coincide with obviously testosterone and your day-to-day life.
yeah. Love that. I um I got to a point where I just started to notice my eyes just started to track off a little bit more from my focal point in front of me. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe we're back to where looking at a few different objects in the gym. Yeah, gym attachments, of course. But if you did you have any like you said between the UAE show and going back to British finals. No, not British finals, but
Yeah,
BMBF. That was the hardest point in prep
yeah.
because of the travel, or was there like another moment where you were just fatigued beyond belief? Maybe life was catching up to you, and you were just like, "Fuck."
That week was the most difficult because throughout that week, I think I had like, so bear in mind, this is peak week. So
Mm,
the week prior to that, we obviously had the travel. So 6.5 hours from Manchester to Dubai. The approach obviously there was very similar to the approach for the UKFB out of England, where we front loaded at the week and then the back end of the week was very low carb, pretty much low days, with pushing obviously diuresis because we did actually load relatively assertively at the front end of the week. So we actually was able to obviously taper it down towards the back end of the week. Um, so that week within itself was challenging. So this is the peak week for the UAE with obviously the travel and stuff, but you kind of ride that high of like one, I've just come off the back of winning my first overall. Two, I'm on the way to Dubai to compete. So you kind of running that high and how you feel doesn't really matter because you are just like high on life at the minute. Um, but then it was kind of like the week after it's a bit of like a reality check of like a dump in emotion. So it's like you've turned pro, you've done the pro show as well. You've been absolutely slaughtered in the pro show. I think it came like seventh or something in the heavyweights in the UAE,
mm,
which yeah, that was the first time I lost that season as well. So it's kind of like
mm.
a bittersweet. It's like you've turned pro and then you've just come seventh. So it's kind of like, you know what I mean? Um, so then yeah, you have kind of like that dump, and it's like, wow, I've now got 7 hours travel back home, and then I've got a 4 hour drive down south. Um, all whilst now because we obviously had the travel and stuff. Um, we're again not carbing up for the next show because we're trying to pull the fluid retention off from um the travel. So yeah, it was just like really low energy, and then it kind of took 2, 3 days once being back home in England to feel a little bit normal. But then it was kind of like, okay, we're feeling normal again, but now we're peaking for the next show in another unconventional manner. So again, it's just like by then it's like three peaks in that manner. It does really like wear you down, like energy wise. Um, and again, because I've just come out of like the massive reality check of you've climbed the amateur tree really quick. You're right now back at the root of like the pro ranks. So you're almost like going into a show knowing you're going to lose. Like I even said to like my girlfriend on the way to the show, I'm like, I'm not winning the show. Like that was the first time, like the whole prep, I said, like, I'm not winning the show. Like there's because I knew Robert was doing it, I knew Keithy was doing it, I said that there's no way I'm winning the show. I said I'd be happy if I came third and I came fourth. So yeah, it was kind of just like I was just going for the sake of going because I've already entered the show. So I was just kind of
Yeah,
filling my obligation.
yeah. Well, mate,
Um,
I probably learn a thing or two there because I'm still yet to have my first defeat. And I was actually thinking about that today. I said to myself, okay, next time I start prep, I'm actually gonna have to write down like what I'm gonna do, just to give myself a little bit of a off branch. Like, hey, when this happens,
yeah,
if it happens, because it might, like this is how you're gonna process it. Because I think everyone can say they focus on the process, that's where they put all their energy, but when it actually happens, it's not a bad idea to have a plan, and it's not because
yeah.
we don't
This
want
is
to
something that
be.
I say to like a lot of clients who are first time competitors who obviously because it's the first competition, they're so drived and like motivated to win. You have to like almost bring them down a bit, and not bring them down, but almost like give them the reality of like, look, you have the potential to win, very much so. And obviously, it's my job to make sure you are as competitive as you can be on the day. But you need to be prepared in case of the eventuality of a genetic outlier turns up on the day, which does happen, especially with bodybuilding now becoming a lot more popular. That does happen. These we're seeing now on Instagram pretty much week on week now. These freaks are just turning up at shows who no one's ever seen before. So you need to be prepared for like if that happens. And if that does happen, ultimately, like if you win the show, if you lose the show, if you feel like you should have won but you've lost, if you feel a bit like you've been robbed or whatever, like the result at the end of the day is always the same. Regardless if you win or lose that show, you're going to go home and you're gonna do the same thing. You're gonna eat your meals, you're gonna train. So like I know it's hard in the moment to think like have that sort of like foresight of like it doesn't kind of matter in the grand scheme of things how the show goes because the end result is always going to be the same. You're always going to chase more physique development down the line, anyways. Like, especially if you want to actually have a career within bodybuilding, how your first show goes doesn't actually matter that much. But obviously, as a first time competitor, you do big it up in your head of this massive grand event and ultimately, like the outcome will always be the same. Win, lose, draw, whatever. You're still gonna go home, eat, and train because it's your
Yeah,
passion. It's what you love to do. And I think like within the pro ranks, especially, you have to have a bit more of that mindset because you know who you're competing against and you know how good the levels are and obviously for yourself, who hasn't obviously made your pro debut yet, like there is kind of like a factor of you just need to see what you look like in a pro lineup. And then from there you can kind of refine. It's like it's why it's called your rookie pro season. It's why
yeah,
it's called your
and
pro debut. You're finding just
and
where you
the
stand within the pecking order.
yeah, and then you can shift your mindset around. Okay, well, there's more to progress. I can progress here. Like, as soon as I get off stage, I'm going to go straight to the judges. I'm going to get feedback and you know set up that plan. And I mean, I would just be excited to go up against other passionate, competitive individuals.
Yeah.
Like that in itself is just a really cool thing. Man, what's going on now? Like half the time it seems you're washed up or something on socials. Like you're sick one week
I'm
and then I
washed.
don't know, you're dead the next. Uh, what's
Washed,
in the
man.
near future for you?
So I've just completed my first week of my pre-prep diet. So yeah, the plan now is to obviously pull off a bit of the excess body fat from the last, I think it was 45 weeks I spent pushing up. And then from there, I'm not sure actually how long this diet is going to last because ultimately it depends on obviously the look and obviously biofeedback and how training goes. And how quick the body weight and body fat comes off because like this week I'm down 3 kilo in this first week. Obviously, naturally, it will taper off as the weeks progress. But if we kind of keep our foot on the gas, how it is now, I'm down to 200 pounds from 206. We likely will end probably like somewhere in between 185 and 190. So, probably looking at another 9 to probably 11 weeks of dieting, give or take. And then we will set up for our prep next year. So we'll obviously reverse out and then we will push up until around March, April time next year, where we will start competition prep for my rookie pro season. Um, Timeline wise, where I am thinking about mid-September to October. with potential of doing WNBF Worlds, but I'm kind of waiting to see how the season unfolds because the main thing for me this year is I just want to be competitive within the pros. But, as bodybuilding goes, I want to be competitive against good lineups. I don't want to be like anyone can go to Timbuktu in the middle of nowhere and be competitive and form a lineup. I want to be competitive in deep pro lineups. So I'm thinking about lining up pro shows which will be very competitive. And I'm very open and honest in my bodybuilding approach, and I'm not like scared to say what shows I'm thinking about doing. Um, at the end of the day, like the people who turn up are going to turn up anyway. So,
Yeah, man. Let me know. We might line it up.
um, like we're thinking mid-September. We will either probably do WNBF Spain, so the Minotaur
Okay.
Cup, or we will do the pro show again in the UAE. But
Mm.
I kind of want to see what we're looking like and what the lineups are looking like because those two shows typically run a week apart or maybe sometimes over the same weekend. So it'll kind of be like one or two because obviously Spain for myself, it's a 2 hour flight versus 6.5 hours. We also need to see what like is going on in terms of like a macro event with obviously how things are at the moment in the Middle East with,
Yeah.
Iran and the USA. Um, because that's another thing. When this is actually a funny story. So when that conflict kicked off, I was actually in Dubai and thankfully I was able to come home. But it was a 9 hour flight home compared to 6.5 hours. So
How'd you have to go? How'd you get back? Do you have to go down towards like?
we flew
Did
like
you have to go
all the
up
way
or?
around. So usually we fly like up and like past
Yeah.
Turkey. We had to like fly down and around like the outskirts of Saudi Arabia. So
Wow.
like past like where like I'm not sure what the channel of water is, but where like I think Ethiopia and like Saudi Arabia have that like stretch of water. It was like we had to fly all the way around.
Insane. The
So
Gulf
yeah, it
of
was
Aden and the Red Sea.
yeah. So we had to do that
Wow.
route, which added 3 hours on top of the flight. So yeah, if that's like conflict isn't like resolved, I probably will do Spain. So that's kind of why we've highlighted those two shows because
Mm.
9 hour flight during prep isn't well, especially your first show in prep probably isn't the greatest thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, for you, you'll have to do that anyways. For all your shows, pretty
Mate, it's a
much.
non-negotiable. It's like just fucking suck it up,
Yeah.
mate. Yeah.
Um,
No, Asia looks good, but that would be a challenge for you for sure
I would like
to get
to
to.
compete in Asia. I do think at some point in my career, I will do a show or two in Asia because
Mm.
Taiwan's obviously a fantastic show. Hong Kong's another great show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I actually have like a decently sized following in Korea, funnily enough. So I would actually like to probably do the Korean Pro show. But I think they're at the moment a bit like 1 year they do it, 1 year they don't. So it's kind
Okay.
of one of them. Um, so I would like to do those two shows from like a production aspect. But it would be a case of like if I did those shows, like I would have to center my whole season around like that time of year. Um, because obviously the Hong Kong show is always like in the middle of the
It's
year, and then
earlier.
Taiwan's
Mm.
like at the end. So it's a
It's
bit
really hard
challenging to
to
do that.
keep yourself in shape for that many weeks.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, after that I will be doing the WMF UK Pro Show because why wouldn't I? And then I will do the MBW show next year as well, so AJ Morris's show. And then
Cool, man.
from there, I will make my decision if I go to Worlds or not.
Yeah, because it is a big trip. I think they are improving their standards. You know, making worlds a world event, not a
Yeah.
subpar world event. But to leave the chat today, do you have a funny prep story?
Um, so I've kind of well, on the flight home from competing in Dubai,
Hmm.
my flight, obviously, anyone who's from England and flown to Dubai, pretty much all the flights are overnight on the way back to England. So the flight's like 2, 3 a.m. Local time coming back. So I went to sleep on the flight and I was actually wearing Birkenstocks. And when I woke up, I tried to put my feet back in my Birkenstocks and my feet wouldn't go back in my Birkenstocks. My feet had swollen that much from falling asleep on the flight that like that's how much like the water retention was. Um, in
That's
terms of
crazy.
actual like comical stories from prep, uh, I don't think I have any like good stories that are like funny. No, I don't really have. Pretty boring. Pretty anticlimactic.
Yeah, AJ's not too far off from talking about you as just a horizontal line, just parallel,
Yeah,
no deviation.
well, I guess like the only deviation I had like throughout my day is like at like 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I would just like lie down in bed, like just smashed. Like I wouldn't even go to sleep. I would just lie down on my bed, just stare at the ceiling,
Yeah.
like in a pit of fatigue. Um, in like the heights of prep. What about yourself? Have
What
you
what
got any funny stories?
yeah, I think I've said this one before, but you get to a point where digestion slows down and then the refeed day comes in and everything sort of gets moved through the
News.
system. Yeah. And
You
for
go from
whatever
having
reason
like
this was
rabbit droppings.
well, mine would just hold in there for an extra couple of days than normal. And this toilet was unfortunately a little bit too small, and I hadn't
Oh
quite
God.
clicked on that I needed to do a double flush, as I'm doing my business. So that was, as I'm sure everyone can probably picture in their mind, I had to get a little bit creative with how to get the toilet to flush. So that was kind of funny. Um, I mean, oh no, I'm not going to say that. It's a little bit too personal for me.
T
But
TMI.
yeah, that was a little bit. Yeah. If I ever see you in person, I'll tell you. You just have to remind me though. It was actually a pretty funny one. You'll be kind of shocked about it, to be quite frank. Related. Let's put it like that. Add a little bit of suspense to it. Uh funny stories. Not really. Not really. That was probably it, to be honest. Prep in itself isn't necessarily a comical
No, it's
time.
definitely not. You actually lose a lot of your sense of humor.
I mean, I did like sort of strolling through the aisles of a fresh fruit and vegetable shop. So I'd go
Yeah.
and have a look. Oh, the Kanzi apples are on special this week. They look pretty good. Or go past the carrots. I'm like, oh, the carrots, fuck, they look. I just, it wasn't like going through an ice cream shop or uh,
You
a
know, I
lolly shop
never
or
did
anything like
that.
that. But mm,
Like with my food shops, like what I did was I would eat my meal and then immediately after eating, I would go and do my food shop. Like I
yeah,
would never like do my food shop like in between a meal or like on the way home from like the gym or something. I would literally like I made it a conscious effort so it was like I've ate my meal right and do my food shop now. Whilst I'm kind of like not starving.
mm,
Because I
mm.
do
No, I
think
like
that's
that.
kind of where a lot of like food focus starts to stem from when you're just like people watch like food porn videos and food
Oh, for
challenges
sure.
on the phone and
Yeah.
they'll go in like the supermarket, they'll stare at like crisp and biscuits and stuff, and it's like you're just self-torturing yourself.
There's a couple of thought processes, right? I've heard this from coaches who predominantly coach male or predominantly coach female clients, and there seems to be a little bit of a difference in opinion, depending on who you talk to. Like, I think for one, hey, let's not go crazy on strolling up and down aisles of chocolate and like lollies and snakes and stuff. Like, it probably didn't help me, but I wasn't doing that. I was more just getting some steps in and walking through the local um, fresh fruit market. But I probably won't do that next time. But
Do
the
you
other
think
thought,
that has go on?
yeah, the other thought process is like, hey, let's keep in a bit more food variety. Let's not have plain and bland foods where we're potentially down regulating the hedonic effect of food, where we get that stimulation without actually eating, which could overload into a an outburst or an event of eating off plan. And this seems to be maybe a little bit more popular within the female circle, at least of what I've heard. I have some male clients that were a little bit more flexible with their intake going up until that sort of 8 to 10 week out mark. And then I'm like, hey, let's keep things standardized. Let's increase the correlated power of body mass at the back end of this contest prep here so it can have a bit more of a meaningful impact in terms of decision making. But and then the other argument is like, hey, let's have a food you really like maybe it's a homemade pizza, which you can make pretty blandly, or maybe it's like a little Freddo Frog type of like lolly or something like that you keep that in throughout the entire prep. And to be completely honest, I for me personally, that's not what I would do, nor what I'd recommend, because it just plays into that thought of something that's very hyper palatable. You're thinking about food a little bit more. Like maybe you have X amount of macros each day or on a refeed day to play around with. I mean, I can't see that being super productive at the back end of a contest prep.
Yeah, myself, I don't do cheat meals on prep. I don't do like for myself or for clients. Like if you're having a high day, you're just having more of already what you're
Same
eating.
foods. Yep.
And even post show, like if you have got a season mapped out, post show, I don't do cheat meals post show either, unless you've actually got like a significant gap between contests. Because for me, it doesn't make sense. Like if you've just competed and you've got your next contest in 2 or 3 weeks' time, you wouldn't have like a burger and fries or a pizza or whatever 2 weeks out from your first show. So why would you do it for your second or third or fourth show? And I do think as well there is a bit of like a correlation between the individuals who struggle quite a lot post show with how they handle like prep and like the high days that they've had in prep and having like massive varieties in their diet throughout the majority of their prep when it actually then comes to the post show. Um, which is why I've kind of adopted the approach of like, right, once you've competed, go home, have a bowl of oats, have a bowl of cream of rice or whatever. So something actually quite voluminous because obviously throughout show day you're not eating significant amount of food because naturally you probably pulled your protein down a little bit for the day. You should already be full of carbohydrates from loading earlier on in peak week. So on show day, you're having very low volume food. So you actually probably do have a bit more room at the back end of the day with putting in a lot more fluid, having a more voluminous meal. So that's typically what I like to prescribe for people post competing. Um, and then like in the kind of recovery of the season, I do think having some flexibility, but not a whole bunch, is kind of the sweet spot. Um, But obviously, it's also the balancing out of if you go too far one way, you will just have someone who will just do what they want anyway.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it really comes down to the individual in front of you, what their skill set is, their timeline, like you put forth. I
Yeah.
do really like a story I heard. An Australian coach. He's doing quite well, but he's in the enhanced realm. He did one of his preps where he tracked, flexibly dieted every single day, and made it a challenge to almost have something different every single day. So, he's constantly introducing variety on a meal to meal basis. And he said it was the
Wow.
hardest thing he has ever done. Or at least maybe
How
not
many
hardest
different
thing he's
ways
ever
can you
done.
cook a chicken?
Well, no, he would have a different meal. Like it would be slightly different each day. Like maybe he goes
Yeah.
chicken to
Wow.
fish one day, to really assess it for himself. And he said it was very challenging. I'm sure you could. I mean, I
Yeah,
can imagine
because
just the process. Okay, I had this yesterday. Like, what can I have today? How do I fit this into my macros? Like planning
you're
it out each day,
almost
you'd have to give a good half hour.
over. You're almost throwing yourself into like food focus because not even from an aspect of you wanting to like cheat your diet because you're food focused, but you're just hyper fixated on what your next meal is going to be then. Just
Yeah,
having to make
yeah.
that decision on a day to day, on a 2 hour basis.
Mm. I would like to sort of do something along the lines, not to that extent, across a just a fat loss phase. Um, Again, just to go, hey, like let's give this other side of the equation a try. Because if you don't know, if you don't go, you don't know. So I think it's worthwhile trying. As a lot on top of, I want to do a slightly more aggressive fat loss phase as well, but that's um, a different conversation. But yeah, I also think like, oh, let me try it. Let me see if I can handle it. Let's see how challenging I sort of find the variables, because then I might be able to be a
With
better coach
like
for the back of it.
with like your diets and stuff, do you kind of go completely like 180 and like cleaning up your diet, or do you gradually like come into it, or are you just like round dieting and bang cold turkey on like everything you've been having?
I have got to a standard in which we coach all of our athletes to, where in an off season we have three tiers. The top tier in an off season setting is plus or minus 5 grams protein, fat, and carbs. The second tier is we're hitting a minimum protein, which is normally set maybe, I don't know, 20 to 30 grams underneath the target. So we're hitting that minimum protein, or we're even setting the target at the normal prescribed target. And then we're getting within plus or minus 100 calories, 150 calories. So protein and fat and carbohydrates sort of shifts. And then the third tier is where we're not inputting anything into a tracking application. So you're basically eating off intuition. Um, and in the off season, we'd say, hey, 1 to 2 days per week at T2, and then 5 to 7 days per week at T1 as a sort of minimum standard. I personally operate at T1 most of the time. And when I just transition into a diet, I just tidy things up a little bit more. Like I mightn't weigh things cooked weight when it comes to like sweet potato or rice. Like I might go back to raw weight. Or it might be the little bit of dash of milk I put in my morning coffee. Little things like that where I do put them in, but I don't necessarily measure them to the exact gram
Yeah.
in the off season, but I account for them. And I'll probably also pull back on tracking things with my eyes when it comes to eating out, which I do a bit of. So there
I
would be a little
am
bit
like
more.
that. I
Yeah.
don't think I've
So
ever
like,
tracked me a lot.
well, yeah,
I
I like to
just
say, hey,
I
take
just bang
take a photo
calories.
of it. Yeah, take a photo of it. bank a few extra calories because depending on what your allotment is, like it could be quite challenging to eat out with 600 calories. Like, good luck. Um, but yeah, I like putting forth, hey, take a photo of your plate and then break down all the items on it so you can track it, but it also open up your eyes into how much is actually on your plate when you go and eat out too. So it's a little bit of a educational piece.
Yeah,
I found that quite easy, and it also means you can take a photo, not even think about it when you have your meal. So you're not sitting there putting it in your
ruining the
nutritional
family dinner.
tracker. Yeah, yeah. It's like, hey, man, like, chill out. It's okay. Like you could do it at the end. Just take a photo, and we can then assess, things like body weight the next day. Like, did you, okay, body weight went up 400 grams. Did it feel like you had 5 grams of salt in your mouth when you woke up? Okay, there's probably a lot of salt in that meal. You can sort of break it down a little bit and provide some education around it, but it sounds like you're quite similar in terms of going from an off season into a diet. Things don't really change. It's just like a little bit of a tighten up, and then you're onto
Yeah,
onto business.
so for myself, like I said earlier on, in the off season, if I want to eat something, I'll just eat it because um my justification is as long as I train significantly hard, like the bag of sweets I've had doesn't matter. But like when it comes to dieting, it's like bang, cold turkey, like nothing matters. I just eat the meal plan and that's it.
Yeah.
Granted, in the off season, like I still eat off a meal plan. If I do actually have like an off plan meal, I'll kind of do meal replacement. So I'll eat 3 meals and then I'll leave like 2 meals replaced, obviously with an off plan. But or when like calories get higher, I'll have 4 meals and just replace 1 meal because then peak off season, you're getting towards pretty big portions of meals anyway. So you probably find that like you probably underate your caloric intake from an off-plan meal if you're doing that
Mm.
kind of that like peak of off season.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to mention is have you tried trialing like allowances with not competitors with clients? So for
Yeah.
instance, to have that like bit of flexibility, you'll say, okay, we'll do 4 meals and then your last meal you can kind of have it like what you want it to be within this kind of like thing, or like you have your set amount of meals, and then we've got like 400 to 500 calories, which you can just have like whatever you want within those constraints of like if you want to have like cheese, you can just put 400 grams of cheese or whatever it is on your meal or
Mm.
something to, you know?
I personally haven't, but I know other coaches that have, and depending on the person and just the context of the individual, it can be quite good. Um, it maybe you could use it as a tool for adherence.
Yeah.
It also might help someone, I don't know, maybe someone always keeps struggling because they eating extra after dinner. It's like, hey, you've got 400 calories after dinner, and maybe because the forefront of the day is so structured, they're then able to follow
That
the
is
plan
typically
really
when
easily,
a lot of
and then it's
people
just that
fall off. It is
back
the
end of the day.
evenings and nighttime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I do know. I listened to a presentation earlier this year that he put that forth as a potential way to, um, you know, maybe create better adherence, give some flexibility, uh, utilize the individual structure of their day to your benefit to then
Yeah.
allow a little bit more food at the back end of the day. Um,
Well, yeah, that is what coaching is. It's about fitting bodybuilding into people's routines, essentially.
yeah. Do you have anyone
It's
that you
that's
use
what
that with?
um I used to, not at the minute anymore. And I only typically do that with like if I've got a lifestyle client
Yep.
because like ultimately if I've got like a lifestyle client who do you want to follow like a structured meal plan, but want a bit of flexibility, then that's obviously why I'd probably look to implement that. But most lifestyle people, as long as I'm kind of confident in their ability to actually track macros and calories, I do typically like let them like, okay, here's your macros. I'll give them kind of like a framework of how I want it to be. So I'll have it like I want you to have 30% of like your carbohydrate intake in like your pre-workout, like 35% in your post.
Mm,
Split the remainder across whatever. Try to have this amount of protein throughout the day. So you've got your MPS spikes throughout the day and like little things like that. So they kind of have like a framework to work off rather than just like I'll have a bag of Haribos as like my carbs for my pre-workout meal type kind of thing. Um,
mm.
but again, that's only really with people who can like demonstrate like I can effectively adhere to like a macro based approach.
Yep.
Um, because typically you find the people who do that do naturally fall within their own kind of meal plan anyway.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've done something where maybe the person goes, "Hey, I don't need this all the time, but I really like it if I have like a wagon wheel available to me," as an
Gosh,
example,
I've not had
right?
a wagon wheel since I was a kid.
And so
It's a
I
blast from the
will have
past.
a section within this plan structure, like allowances and extras, and that might accommodate for 500 calories as an example. And there might be a
Yeah,
few other things in there. Might be some additional fruit, um, to where they could probably pull and play. Like maybe one day they're like, "Oh, I don't even need to think about this wagon wheel," or having it in there actually makes it easier for them to not have one because they know they have the option to.
yeah,
And when they do, they're like, "Oh, I don't really feel like it anymore." So then they need to push and pull with respects
yeah.
to other food.
I do think that's probably the where a lot of people kind of struggle with adherence through prep. It's literally the thought of like, I can't have this, which makes them want it more. Which I
I
guess is
don't
like,
want to have this. I
yeah,
want to stick
which,
to the plan.
yeah, literally, whilst just
Yeah,
staring in the cake aisle on the food shop.
yeah.
Um, but I think that's probably why I don't struggle that much with like food focus through like dieting and stuff because I've over like again, it's a skill, but like the more diets you do, the more you realize like this food actually isn't going anywhere, like in 8 weeks, 10 weeks time, I can have it. And then funny enough, you finish your diet, you have it, and it's like I don't even want this
Wasn't that
now.
good? Yeah. You
Yeah,
have
but
one bite and you're like, why did I purchase that? And then
and
you
it
feel
is
bad because you want to
always
throw it out and you've spent the money on it. You're like, for
and it's
fuck's sake,
always something that you would never eat. It's like people will
in the off
do
season.
like yeah, people in prep they'll like hard cream of rice flavors or like whey flavors, and it's like the deeper they get in prep, like it's funny actually. Last year on Instagram, me and my friend, we used to like laugh at people's Instagram stories because we'd like watch them prep, and as they like prepped, their like whey protein order on a month to month basis that they would post would get like more and more niche. So we'd be like, yeah, he's like he's struggling at the moment because he'd be like, let's start off at like vanilla, and by like the end they've got like cherry bakewell pistachio or something. And it's like,
Yeah.
mate, you
Mate,
spend
I might
60 quid
start
on
at
some of this.
vanilla and I'll end up at unflavored. Like I'm going the other way.
Yeah.
I'm going the other way.
You just
But
having
honestly, I think
dry
I heard
vanilla.
someone say this, you know, if you wouldn't do it in your off season, why are you doing it in your prep? Why are you doing it in your post competition phase?
Yeah.
Because like yeah, you're buying into the event, the timeline, rather than like, how do you actually function? Maybe you need to change the way you think about the fact that you can't have this food. And it's like, no, I don't want to have this food because it's not going to facilitate the fat loss that is
Yeah,
going to get me those rib
where you
cage
want to go.
glutes. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's one of them as well. Contest prep's obviously different because it's a finite timeline, but with like people doing their first mini cuts and stuff, you kind of have to explain to them like, look, the better you adhere, the quicker it's over. Like, I know you probably don't like dieting. Most people don't because of the restriction and feeling hungry and whatever, but it's kind of like the better you execute it, the quicker it finishes, you know? Because if you're
Yeah.
constantly like cheating on your diet and whatever, like you're just prolonging the phase that you're in that you're not enjoying really.
Yeah.
And again, that's where like the skill of dieting comes into play with obviously experience.
Yeah. And you sometimes they need to fall too. Need to fall on their
Yeah.
face, make the mistake. Oh, okay, cool. It's going to take an extra 4 weeks. That's all good.
Most
And
most
I'm sure
people
you've been
do
there.
cheat
I've
on
been
their
there
first
too.
diet.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, like my first diet that I did, this was when I was self-coaching and I didn't actually like know a whole bunch about like dieting and stuff. So I was dieting on like a calorie tracker and I was literally just like my diet was all over the place. I'll just eat what I want and it was like a Sam Sulek diet. It was like I'll have whatever I want, but as long as I'm in my calories, I'm fine. So it was like energy would just be like all over the place because like I'd have like 80 grams of carbs from like sweets. So it's just like blood glucose flies, insulin flies. You feel great for 10 minutes and you have this massive crash, and it's like, yeah, there's probably a more sustainable way to do this.
Man, that's pretty
But
funny.
you've got to experience things like that. Like
Yeah, yeah,
that's
100%.
bodybuilding. You learn along the way and you become more skilled and more refined within your process, and you just become better at it over time. Like you can't rush time, and you've got to make mistakes to learn.
Yeah, yeah. Well, man, I'm gonna wrap it up there. I'm looking forward to some dinner. I picked up some oyster mushrooms on special.
Oh wow.
Tight ass over here, but hey, we got to make an extra couple of dollars when and where we can. Oh, I do have some sweet potato cooking in the oven as well, so that will be all nice and baked for me. But man, thank you very much for coming on. I'd love to one day maybe meet you on stage, maybe next year. Who knows?
You know,
Really comes down to how much progress I may or may not have made at the end of my next fat loss phase, which could turn into a pre-prep. But yeah, we will see what happens. But man, I'm super keen to see the progress you've made when you step
yeah.
up on stage next time. And yeah,
Hopefully
just want
we're
you to,
better.
yeah, hopefully, right? Like you're like, oh, all those sessions, all that,
I'm proud of
failure.
something.
All right, brother. I'll let you get on with
Right.
your day. Thanks so much for coming on, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem. See you later, mate.